Hey guys, Sean Michael with the Sean Michael simulation here. Today, we have a wonderful discussion topic for you drone owners out there, especially those of you who are new to drone ownership and those of you who own a Mavic Mini. If you're familiar with the Mavic Mini, I recently did a video stating that in my opinion, the Mini is probably the best drone for most people. I love the Mavic Mini, but the Mavic Mini has one notable shortcoming, and that is the lack of collision detection. So today we're going to discuss how not to crash whatever drone you may own. And unfortunately, I speak on this topic from experience. I have crashed several drones over the many years that I've been flying drones. And I'm going to show you some of my misadventures and foibles right now. Throughout this broadcast, we will be looking at some of my archive footage from years of drone ownership. And I'm not proud of some of these moments, but I think by looking at some of my mistakes, you might learn what not to do. And here we see my very first drone flight. This was with a DJI Phantom 1, the first generation Phantom, which did not come equipped with a camera, by the way. So you had to strap a GoPro or action camera onto the bottom of the drone. And the first time that you fly a drone, your experience is probably going to go like this. You're going to become confused, disoriented. You're going to push forward and the drone will go backwards. You're going to push right and the drone goes left. And what's going to happen? This is going to happen. You're going to crash. And yes, so I actually did crash my Phantom on the very first outing. And what did I do when I crashed onto the ground? I panicked and I pushed the return to home button. So here you see my Phantom 1 going into return to home mode. What happens in return to home mode? Well, the drone goes up to a preset height. And in this case, I believe it was around 60 feet. And then it flies back to the home point and lands itself on the home point. Now, there are a few problems with this, which I will address in a minute. But I want to point out here on my first drone flight, that first generation Phantom had a battery that fastened inside the battery compartment with a cable. And I had poorly closed the battery compartment. And I'm talking about this. This is my first generation Phantom. And you can see this was a very crude, almost hobbyist type of product. And the battery compartment did not close very well. And the battery attached to this cable on the inside. So my battery actually slid out of the compartment. The compartment was not closed well. And when I crashed the drone, the battery fell out, which is pretty scary. So what you see there on the right side of the screen is actually the battery hanging out of the drone. Thankfully, the drone did pilot itself back to the home point and it landed itself, as you can see there. But we want you to avoid this kind of scenario. So, by the way, I want to give a shout out to those of you who are my subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. If you're watching this broadcast live, post a comment, post a tip. If you've crashed a drone, share some advice with our community, and I'll share your comments with our community. And if you're new here, definitely please subscribe, because we have a lot of fun talking about drones and photography. And we're going to talk about all sorts of different topics. I just want to give a quick shout out to Connie in Idaho. Hey to Jedrick. Hey to George in Phoenix. And hello, Todd, near Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, Todd, we're looking now at footage of my second major drone crash. And that red rock may look familiar to you because that is in southern Utah. And the drone that I crashed, I have right here. It's a Phantom 3. And you'll notice there are no props on it. And in fact, there's no camera underneath it. And that's because what you're viewing here is my Phantom 3's final flight. My Phantom 3 suffered a devastating crash. And I'm going to go into some of the mistakes that I made. First of all, I want to mention obstacle avoidance. If you have obstacle avoidance on your drone, absolutely you should have it enabled. And some of these older drones do not have any kind of obstacle avoidance. And the newer Mavic Mini, as I mentioned, has no obstacle avoidance. Now, the newer Mavic Pro 2 does have 360 degrees of obstacle avoidance. But these older models did not, and I made a lot of mistakes flying them. Here's another mistake. I just want to go back and tell you what happened in Utah. In Utah, I lost sight of my drone. And one of the cardinal rules is to visually inspect the area and maintain visual contact with your drone, if at all possible. And I think this is a rule that many of us break from time to time. You know who you are because you take the drone up, you see something interesting. Before you know it, you've ducked around a corner. And in this case, I went around a cliff of red rock in Utah, and I ended up backing my drone into that cliff, and it fell down onto some rocks, and that was the end of that drone. So obviously, you want to maintain visual contact with your drone whenever possible. And on that note, especially if you're new to drones, choose your first flight area carefully. You know, my first flight area, we'll go back and just take a quick look at it. I found a place that was a wide open kind of field. And so I could at least fly around without worry about bumping into trees. Because the very first time you fly a drone, you're probably going to be uncertain. You're going to panic at times. You're going to lose control. And when that happens, you don't want to overcorrect, overreact. I think one of the best steps that you can take when you feel yourself losing control of the drone, don't panic and just stop pilot input. Take your hands off the controls for a minute, because especially with these modern drones, you've got a built-in GPS. They're pretty good at staying in one location if you just don't mess with them. And I think when you first start getting your sea legs, so to speak, and flying a drone, we tend to overreact, overcorrect, and we cause more problems than we solve when we do that. So you have to really carefully choose where you're flying your drone, especially when you're learning. And I want to emphasize that you should never hurry the pre-flight process, because in this case, this was my very, very first drone flight. I didn't really have the battery compartment closed properly. And that was a problem, really a design flaw in the very first DJI Phantom, that those battery compartments didn't close well. And you had a really heavy lithium battery inside that could slip out. I'm not the only person this happened to. Thankfully, mine did not come disconnected from my drone. But, you know, when you set up a drone anytime, you want to make sure that the arms of the drone, if you're using a Mavic style drone with foldable arms, are fully folded out. Don't get into a hurry. I would say that 3/4 of the problems I've had in flying drones have come from me getting into a hurry. And I get sloppy with the setup, because sometimes we're traveling with our RV. I feel rushed and I want to set things up quickly and do some quick recording. And anytime I get in a hurry, things tend to go wrong. So you really want to make sure that you take your time with the pre-flight setup, make sure your battery is secured, make sure the arms are folded out and the props are folded out. Let your GPS find all the necessary satellites so it has a secure home point that it can navigate back to. And visually inspect the area, not just the surrounding area, but I want you to look straight up. And it's not so much the case in southern Utah, but it is the case in many places that you will have hidden obstacles that might be 30, 40, 50 feet in the air. And I'm talking about tree branches or vines or power lines that can extend directly over you. So if you're not looking directly up above the drone, you run the risk of taking off the drone, especially if you're in a hurry, and raising it up into a tree branch or something like that. So you always need to be doing a visual inspection of the full area. And in addition to tree branches and power lines and so forth, look around for animals. And I'm talking about specifically dogs and birds of prey. Now, dogs are everywhere around the world, and there are a lot of dogs that look at drones as basically birds or juicy targets to chase down and grab with their mouth. And the same, to an extent, goes with birds of prey. They view drones as fellow birds that are possibly intruders into their airspace. And I'm sure, like, if you're into drones, you've probably noticed some birds of prey attacking drones in midair when they see a drone. So you got to obviously always inspect the area for obstacles and for animals and so forth. Even if you're an experienced pilot, be careful about where you take off and land your drone. Don't attempt trick maneuvers. I mean, unless you have a stunt drone and you're one of those guys who's really practicing with a stunt drone, don't try to land on your balcony in southern Thailand, because your drone might go into automatic return to home mode and you might crash it on the balcony. And that's what happened here. That was with my Mavic Pro. That was a devastating crash. And here is a crash, minor crash, with my Phantom 4 Pro, which I was doing a little barnstorming. I was doing some video for a friend on his farm property and thought it would be cool if I took it through this barn. Now, sadly, I lost my confidence when I got to the end of the barn, and I thought I might clip onto these tree branches you see on the left. And I mistakenly thought I was out of the barn. I think I lifted the drone into some of those bars that run across the top of the roof of the barn, and my Phantom 4 stayed aloft. So it's still in the air, and I recovered and I moved onward. But my mistake here really was trying to fly it through that barn when I did not know the barn. I had not inspected it. And I included this footage from Burma or Myanmar just to show you, watch out for dogs. And here's an example of a curious dog. I had not even taken off my drone at this point. I'm holding the drone in my hand in Mandalay, Myanmar. And when I saw the dog, I thought to myself, I need to find a different place to put this drone in the air. And here I come to my wife and I say, hey, did you check out the drone? And she's looking for it. So this is Mandalay. Now you're seeing footage that I took with my Mavic Mini. Again, I completely love the Mavic Mini and highly recommend it, but the Mavic Mini has no obstacle avoidance. If you have a drone with obstacle avoidance, obviously you need to be using it. But if you don't, then you need to be extra cautious. And if you're new to drone flying, don't start out by flying over water, because there are several issues that can happen when you're flying a drone. And if you have trouble over water or lose orientation and dunk your drone in the water, then that's it. End of drone. And I'm sure we've probably seen footage of drones on YouTube that dunk down into the water. Occasionally you want to do a 360-degree visual check. And I mean with the drone, even if you feel the surrounding area, it's a good idea to spin the drone around 360 degrees from time to time, just to visually inspect, even through the controller, whether there might be some kind of tower or spire or so forth that could be an obstacle for your drone. Here we're looking at a beautiful pagoda in Mandalay, Myanmar. And, I've talked about the Mavic Mini having such a wonderful battery life. It does have a 30-minute battery life in the best case scenario. But there's something you need to bear in mind. When that battery life hits around 20% of life left, you need to be on your way home. And I would advise that you need to be on the ground with 15% battery life left. Why do I say this? Well, something I discovered in beautiful Myanmar was that the Phantom, for example, has an auto land mode. When the battery level gets low, it will automatically land. Sounds like a nice feature, right? Well, it's not so nice. The battery does not start the automatic landing does not kick in when the battery hits, say, 2% of battery life. It may kick in at 10% of battery life remaining. So if you're piloting the drone over water, it will suddenly just drop down and land in the water. And the same would go if you're over people. Suddenly you get a low battery warning and the drone will drop down and strike people. So you really need to beware auto landing and auto land modes, especially if you're near water, because it will automatically land directly into the water. So I'm going to take a look at some comments now. Todd says hello from Pennsylvania. Hey, Todd. Hey, Jim in Sacramento. Diane says hello from Erie, Pennsylvania. She loves our drone shots. Thank you. Todd says, heck yes, brother. And Todd says, DJI in Missouri crashed many times. It's not the beer. Really, it's not. Yeah, I've said before that drinking and droning is a really terrible idea. You know, there were a few years ago, there was actually some sort of government agent. I don't know if he was with the FBI or the CIA, and he was having a few beers on New Year's Eve and lived in Washington, D.C., flew his drone out and actually landed it somehow on the White House lawn, unintentionally. But that's the kind of thing that can happen if you're drinking beer and flying a drone. Tommy says his drone went up and the wind blew it away, the Texas wind. Tommy makes a great point about wind. You know, some people would recommend that you actually carry around a wind meter. And I've thought about doing so. In fact, I've ordered one that I will be reviewing here on this sort of photography-oriented channel, which I'm calling the Shawn Michael Simulation. I haven't had too much trouble with wind, and I have flown my drone in very high wind environments, but I know what Tommy's talking about on areas of Texas. Like I've flown in southern Texas and some of those desert regions, the Chihuahuan Desert, and the winds can get very strong. So Greg says, always wait for at least 12 satellites before takeoff. That's excellent advice, because the more satellites your drone can locate, the more secure that home point orientation is going to be. You know, with auto land and auto return to home, it's a wonderful feature, but one tip for return to home would be to set your return to home altitude higher than any obstacles. And, you know, in some cases that might be 9 or 10 stories high, depending if you're around a bunch of buildings, or in this case, a Buddhist temple. So, you know, the problem you could have with a Mavic Mini, for example, since there's absolutely no collision detection, it could go into return to home mode and be piloting straight back to the home point, and it would just pilot directly into a building or a tree. And because it has no collision detection, that can happen. So I advise that you take control of your drone as soon as you can. Human control is always better than autopilot, no matter how smart you think autopilot might be. If you saw earlier in this video, when I crashed the drone in Thailand, I was actually battling with my autopilot. And I've had 2 cases where I have accidentally, obviously, crashed drones because the automatic return to home autopilot took control of the drone and started steering it in a direction that I did not like. In the case of the Thailand crash, there were power lines right next to our building, and I feared that the autopilot was basically going to clip a power line when it came down. I don't think it would hurt the power line, but it would have crashed the drone, and the drone was going to fall into a swimming pool that was right next to our building. So obviously I wanted to avoid that. So, you know, even though all these quick shot features and autopilot features are wonderful, keep in mind that quick shot modes can crash. I love using the DJI quick shot modes like the Dronies and the Helix and so forth, but they will crash sometimes. Like they can go directly into buildings and trees, especially with these drones with no collision detection. So Jeff says he's looking into getting a drone, possibly the Mavic Air 2. I like the price of the Mini, but want the obstacle avoidance. Yeah, that's kind of an irony of the Mavic Mini. It has a wonderful price for beginners who are new to drone ownership, and yet it lacks some of those protective features that you would get with something like the Mavic Air or the full-blown Mavic 2 series. DJI, I believe, has announced the Mavic Air 2. If they haven't announced it, it's the worst kept secret in the drone world. And it will, I'm sure, include an updated image processor. So you're going to get image processing that's comparable to the Mavic Mini. The Mavic Mini really punches above its weight class, if you know what I mean. It's a lot of drone in a really inexpensive package in terms of the image quality. And all these images that you're seeing here were shot with the Mavic Mini. This is Inle Lake in Burma, which was a wonderful destination for droning. Let's see, here's Rick in Hilton, New York. Says, every time I pass a Ford pulling an Airstream, I need to check, see if it is you. Yeah, there are a number of white Ford pickups pulling Airstream travel trailers out there, because we do hear reports from people who think they've seen us when actually it wasn't us. And these days, if you're in the United States, and truly in a lot of places in the world, you're probably in lockdown. So probably not even seeing too many Airstreams. Hopefully that will change soon. Hello from Chuck Bratz. Chuck asked what type of drone I use. All of these shots were taken with the little Mavic Mini. This is a $400 drone that I highly recommend, but the Mini has no collision detection. I also use occasionally a Phantom 4 Pro version 2.0. You got to love these DJI names. I don't know who is in charge of naming products at DJI, but they're great with confusing us. And also use a Mavic 2 Zoom. I love the Mavic 2 Zoom. I would say it's my favorite full-featured drone, and the Mini is probably my favorite take anywhere drone. You know, they say the best camera is the one you have with you. So the Mini is a drone you can have with you at all times. The Mavic 2 gained a little weight over the original Mavic, but part of that weight is in 360-degree collision detection. It has sensors all the way around to detect any potential collision. So like here, I just wanted to show you the Mavic Mini in action in a somewhat windy environment at Inle Lake. And as you can see, it's really has beautiful dynamic range. You get a great image out of the Mavic Mini, but you really get a great image out of all of the modern DJI drones. But with the Mini, you also have that wonderful battery life. So I'm a big fan of the Mini. Go back and look at some comments. Terry says, hello from Lynchburg, Ohio. Todd says, we bought a cheap $40 drone and the wind took it away and crash landed upside down on the roof of a neighbor's RV. Thankfully, we got it back. Honestly, the cheapest drone that I have flown was my first Phantom that I think was $400. When, you know, I was really trying to get the drones to enhance a lot of our RV videos that we do on the Long Long Honeymoon channel. And I think, ironically, the cheaper drones, they're probably more difficult to fly. They'll probably get tossed around by the wind more, and they have, no collision detection. They probably have limited GPS navigation. Hello, Rick in Michigan. Good to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Maybe we'll make it to some of those RVIA events and have a whiskey with you again someday. Foster Mike says, I practiced with a flight simulator a couple of hours before I went out. Flight simulator is a good idea. Any kind of practice you can do is a good idea. I think with drone ownership and drone piloting, it's best to start slow and with just modest goals before you progress. You know, one of the mistakes I've seen people make online is they get a drone and they immediately want to start doing stunts, doing tricks, and they start whipping it around in the air. And I've seen some videos online, guy, brand new Phantom drone. And he was doing such crazy maneuvers with his drone that he dialed in this maneuver that shut off the motors mid-flight. And there's actually a technique you can do with the Phantom. I think if you hold both control sticks in the outward down position, it will actually shut off the motors mid-flight, because it's sort of a position you would never normally use. And he was just kind of going crazy with his drone, and it fell out of the sky and just crashed. So, big mistake, but we've all made mistakes. You just don't want to make an expensive mistake with a drone. Brian says hi in Toledo. Todd says, always have a spare. Always good to have a spare everything. I guess I have spare drones, spare batteries, spare cameras. Hello, Ron in Idaho. Hey, Gerald in Albany. Hey, Nicholas in the St. Louis area. Hey, Cindy in Morton, Washington. Well, we thank you for watching. She says, thanks for the info. I'm glad that we're able to share some info that some of you guys may find valuable. We're getting a lot of comments from Facebook. Connie says, if you thought about doing drone reviews like you do the generator reviews, Sean's short drone flights. I think that's a good idea, Connie. I have a separate channel on YouTube that I have put a lot of photography and drone oriented reviews on. I haven't reviewed all my drones, but I'm probably going to start doing that, because I think the Long Honeymoon audience, especially on YouTube, is really focused on RV content and outdoorsy content. They might like me to post a few drone reviews. I mean, again, here you see some Mavic Mini footage from Inlay Lake in Myanmar. Really beautiful. Jason says, good evening. Excited for tomorrow to be able to pick up my camper from storage and get ready to go for the season. That sounds great. We will be doing the same very soon. Hey, John Marucci, always good to see you. If you guys have an RPod, I know that John has done a lot of RPod videos on YouTube. Dave says he put his in the tree, no damage. Yeah, I have come close to putting mine in a tree as well. And the scary thing about crashing into a tree, you could get your drone caught in the upper branches of a tree and just have no way to get it out. I mean, especially if it's back in a forest somewhere. So you always have to be alert with regard to tree branches. I mean, if you get it caught 50 feet up in the air in a tree, you may just never be able to get that drone back again. Now, here we see a beautiful shot by the Mavic Mini in southern Thailand. Very windy environment in the Gulf of Thailand, but the Mini does a wonderful job. Murray says, love your drone clips in Spring Hill, Kansas. Scott says, you rock. Thanks, Scott. You rock as well. Laura says the Mavic recommends no more than 25 knot winds. That's really interesting, and I will be reviewing a wind meter. I believe it's called an anemometer very soon on my photography channel. Michael says the anemometer will help for newer people. I think that's an excellent point, and I have ordered one, Michael, based upon your recommendation, and we'll be giving it a test. Again, here you see the Mavic Mini in a very windy environment in the Gulf of Thailand, and it really performed nicely. And occasionally on the Mini, I have gotten wind warnings, and if I felt that the wind was potentially unsafe, I always piloted the drone back and landed. And I guess another tip along these lines, especially for you newcomers to drone ownership, your drone is going to encounter less wind the closer it is to ground. So like some people who take their drones up 200, 300 feet in the air might be surprised at those stiff crosswinds that can exist at the higher altitudes. Thomas says, hello from New Hampshire. How much time do you spend repairing your drone? Well, that's a great incentive to avoid crashing it. I have spent time repairing my drones. I did repair my Phantom 3 from a minor crash, but after the major crash in Utah, I felt it was not even worth repairing. I repaired my Mavic Pro from a crash in Miami, Florida. And as far as how much time, I probably spent 7 or 8 hours total working on those repairs. You reach a point, I hate to say it, where a point of diminishing returns. You know, if you're going to spend days and days and days trying to repair a drone, it's much better to avoid the accident from the outset. Dave says Holy Stone 700D. I'm not sure exactly what that means. GM says I flew mine in Yosemite National Park. Yeah, you can get in some trouble flying in Yosemite. So, and you would get in trouble flying in pretty much any national park, sadly. In other parts of the world, you can fly in parks, but in the United States, generally, we can't, or we're really restricted in terms of flying in parks. So, I really hope that we can have drone laws that allow people to fly responsibly. Kevin asked, do you plan on reviewing any new Airstream models this year? We're always open to reviewing Airstream models. We're still chugging along with our 25-footer, and we're in the process of customizing it. We recently did a huge solar upgrade to it. So I certainly don't have plans in the short term to get a new Airstream. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I haven't talked to anybody about getting one. We may go to some of the RV shows later this year and take a look at the new models. Andrew says, I downloaded the Fly app, but got a new Mavic Mini. Will I have to re-download it, or will it recognize that? It should recognize the Fly app, but you want to have the latest version of the software. And I will point out the Mavic Mini has new firmware that just came out about 24 hours ago that will update a lot of things about that software. But you need the latest version of the Fly app as well. So just update your Fly app and update the Mini firmware. And you can actually manually dial in the exposure with your Mavic Mini. Archer says, shout out from Destin. Hey, you guys down in the 38 area in Destin. We look forward to getting back down there soon. Guy Key says the Mini has shutdown mode as well, the same stick movement. Yes, if you push those sticks to the outside and down, you can kill the motor in flight. Andrew says, guess this isn't live. Wrong, Andrew. This is live. Jan says, hello from Las Vegas. I love those beautiful drone shots. Keep up the great work and stay safe. Thank you, Jan. Got a lot of beautiful places in Nevada, actually, to fly a drone. And by the way, Andrew, this is live. And if you're watching live, I encourage you to post a comment, post a tip, share it with our community. If you're not watching live and you're watching the replay, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, because we'll be doing more and more live streaming moving forward. At least that is the plan. Jim says, don't chase the wasp nest or the beehive in the tree. They will attack you. I'm sure that is true. If you are near any kind of wildlife, wasps, bees, and birds of prey, hawks, eagles, we have all the above around here, then you need to be cautious. David says, hello from Montgomery. Do you advise getting 107? Depends on what you're wanting to fly. I think for the Mavic Mini, it weighs 249 grams. I've definitely seen people flying kites that weighed a lot more than the Mini. If you want to get 107, get it. But I have not pursued that myself just yet. Dave says 700D is a model of the Holy Stone near the Mavic 2. I will check that out. Andrew says, I missed what you said. So can I fly 2 Mavic Minis on the Fly app? I don't think you'd want to fly 2 simultaneously, if that's what you're asking. I haven't tried flying 2, to be honest. Chris says, hi from Minnesota. Love my DJI Spark. All the DJI drone products have been pretty good, and they really just do keep getting better every year. Thomas asks, how do you set up those cool shots in Alaska where you see your rig coming down the highway? Well, as far as drone shots photographing our RV rig, there are different ways that we do it. Now, some of those shots you've seen from Alaska, believe it or not, I shot before I even had a drone. I used to scout out high altitude points to get a nice cinematic shot from. And yes, it was a lot of work. There's several shots that I did in Alaska before I had a drone, where I would see a high mountain point where we might be able to photograph or video from. And we would sort of arrange a shot just so we could tell the story of where we were and what we were doing. These days, typically what happens is my wife, Christy, drives our RV rig, and I have complete confidence in her towing our rig while I fly the drone. And for those type of shots, I will typically go for my Phantom series drone because the Phantom, it's just bigger. It's got bigger props. It's more stable in the wind, and it's sort of better at higher speeds than the Mavic series. But the Mavic series is incredibly capable as well. Scott says, hi from Wyoming and loving the channel. Thank you, Scott. Kevin asks, have you hit 800 horsepower mark? We have not tuned our truck. I'm really interested in longevity of the truck more so than pure power. And I know some guys out there, once they get head studs and so forth, they really want to max out their truck and get it as powerful as they can. I understand that, but I'm into longevity probably more than anything. Sorry. Norm says he has the Mavic Air. Mavic Air has a great reputation, and DJI is about to release the Mavic Air 2. Guy asked, do you think the Tetons in Yellowstone will open the last week in May? The latest news I have heard is that those campgrounds in that area will open in mid-June, and not all of them will be open, and a lot of the restaurants will be closed. And I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think a lot of the hotels will be closed. The situation we're going through right now is unprecedented, and it does seem to change from day to day. But sadly, I do not think those are going to be up and running in May, at least certainly not in a full-fledged capacity. Let's see. Andrew says, I just got a new Mavic, wondering if I got to re-download the app to fly the new Mini. The Fly app should suit you nicely, and it should handle your Mavic. But it depends on which Mavic you have. And on DJI changes the apps from time to time. Matt says, hello, Box Photos Airstream. Hey, Matt, thanks for tuning in. So I think we've covered most of the points here. Just to quickly review, and you can see some of the mistakes I've made with my drone running again. Use obstacle avoidance if you have it. A lot of drones do not have it. If you don't have it, like if you have a Mavic Mini, choose your first flight area carefully. Really choose all of your flight areas carefully. Don't rush the pre-flight process. Take your time. Fold out those arms. Let the GPS find satellites. Visually inspect the area. Always look straight up. Look for tree branches, towers, signs, and power lines. Some of those power line towers, especially out west, can be surprisingly tall. We're talking, they seem to be 100 feet tall. Look around for animals, dogs, birds of prey. As GM pointed out, look for even wasp nests and beehives. Don't attempt trick maneuvers. Don't start out flying over water. Always maintain visual contact with your drone. Always do a 360-degree visual check from time to time. If you're losing orientation or feel you're losing control, don't overcorrect. Don't panic. Just stop pilot input. And you want to set your return to home altitude high. Take control as soon as you can. And always head home when the battery level hits 20%, if not before. I think DJI may actually recommend 30%. Well, it's probably better safe than sorry. And whatever you do, don't always rely on auto landing, because if you're not careful, that drone will go into automatic landing mode, and there's nothing you can do. It just starts coming down. You can simply move it, but you can't take it back up once it starts that landing mode. So that is a disaster if you let that happen. Let's see if we've got any more comments. Thomas says hello from Mississippi. Hey, Thomas. John says, hey, from Washington State. Do you recommend TPM for the travel trailer? I think you're talking about tire pressure monitoring systems. We don't have one right now, but I think we're going to get one and review it. So I think it is a good investment. Now, we did take the step of switching our travel trailer tires over to the Michelin truck tires, which we feel a great deal of confidence in. And so Yeah, we feel confident in the tires we have, but I do think a tire pressure monitoring system is a good investment. We have suffered a couple of blowouts, and they did a fair amount of damage to our trailer. Those were before we had the Michelin. Let's see. Dave says we're going to head for Alaska late in June, not this year. Ironically, I think that for those of you who want to get out and travel this year, you're going to be able to travel with low crowds, and in some ways, it will be a wonderful time to travel. All of the campgrounds, all of the restaurants are going to be so happy to see you, and you're not going to have probably the large tour buses coming into Yellowstone that would typically be there. I use Yellowstone as an example, but really any of the national parks. And we're going to have to travel to get our economy back up and running. We're going to have to get back out there and start living life normally. And I think we're all looking forward to that. Brian says hello from Linden, California. Hey, Brian. And let's see. Thomas asks, how do you store all the data you generate? I do not put all of my data on the cloud. I have multiple hard drives, and it is kind of an expensive, laborious process. I would like to find a better solution. But if you are taking 4K drone footage or 4K footage of any kind, you're going to figure out that it takes up a lot of space, and it can get very expensive very quickly. If I were to put all of my data onto the cloud, I think we'd be looking at hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month to store it. Now, over time, hopefully, those storage costs will keep coming down, and eventually maybe I will put everything on the cloud, but I'm not there yet. Let's see, Andrew says he crashed his old Mini. James says, hey, from Montana. Hey, James in Montana. Thank you for tuning in. So I think we've covered just about everything on my list as far as not crashing your drone. Again, thanks to everybody who has tuned in to this special live broadcast on the Shawn Michael Simulation. This has been live, and I've enjoyed sharing with you some of these thoughts and some of my rather embarrassing drone ownership moments. Hey, Phyllis in North Carolina, thank you for tuning in. Hey, Larry in Eastern North Carolina, who asked how I'm feeling. That's very kind of you to ask. I'm feeling pretty good. Lately, I've felt a little off. I don't have coronavirus, I don't think. And but I did go through kind of a health scare a few years ago, and I'm still taking my medication related to that. So thank you for asking. I feel like the last 2 years, my health has been excellent, like spectacular. I feel like the last few weeks, it's been a little iffy, but I'm hanging in there. I don't know if it was my previous condition or if I think all of us who've been sitting at home for weeks are feeling maybe out of sorts just a bit. And I've been going to a gym the last couple of years. I've not been able to go to the gym. None of us have. So I've tried to keep up with my health as best I can on my own. I've avoided the quarantine 15. I've not gained 15 pounds, but I feel like my health could be better. Norm says he has an external hard drive. I have a bunch of external hard drives, a ridiculous number, and a bunch of internal hard drives. Like I just built a PC a couple of months ago, and it's got probably 8 internal hard drives, and they're big, at least 4 terabyte drives, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I really need all that storage to store all the video content that we produce. And I have a bunch of external hard drives as well. Bucky says hello from Nevada. GM asks, how's the new Airstream trailer working out with the new batteries and electrical? I'll give a shout out to Battleborn Batteries and the Renogy solar panels. And we got so much wonderful solar equipment installed just about 6 weeks ago. But ironically, it was right about the time when the entire country went into lockdown, when campgrounds started to close, national parks started to close. So truthfully, we haven't been able to test our solar setup the way we would like. So those of you who follow Long Long Honeymoon on YouTube, you probably saw those videos. We did a major solar installation that we look forward to really testing later this spring. I think in the next month to 2 months, when things start opening up, we're going to get back out on the road with our Airstream, and we'll be able to sort of give you a real world report. I'm really excited about all the capabilities that the solar package opens up. I think we're going to be able to camp in a completely different way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, we're going to be able to run any appliance, honestly, without running a generator, including our air conditioner for limited periods of time. But things like the microwave oven, maybe a toaster oven, an espresso machine, anything like that, we'll be able to run off our solar package because we have a 3,000 watt Victron inverter as part of this package. So any appliance that's going to draw less than 3,000 watts, we'll be able to run. And we've got those 4 Battleborn lithium power batteries, which are the equivalent of 8 of the old school lead acid batteries. I mean, it's a fantastic package. We can't wait to get out there and use it. Michael says he uses a tire pressure monitoring system for his trailer and sensors for the spare on the trailer. That's a really good idea about putting sensors on the spare. Diane said, did I hear that you got a new Airstream? Nope, we did not. We still have the same Airstream that we've always had. We love our Airstream, and over the years, we've sort of tweaked it and made it more customized to our needs. And, we just did this big solar upgrade to it. So I don't foresee us switching anytime soon. I mean, I can't really foresee it, not unless Airstream wants to load us up with one, which, Airstream, if you're watching, I'll listen to that. But I'm happy with the Airstream we have. Hey, Pam and Rick in the Panhandle of Florida. I'm sort of old school. I like to buy and hold. I'm happy with our Airstream. I enjoy traveling with it. I know pretty much every square inch of it. I can navigate it blindfolded. I can push every button in there blindfolded. So I'm just sort of happy with it. But I'm always open to new ideas. Jan says she hopes we can travel this year. I hope the same. Robert says I mentioned medication. How do you handle complicated medication issues while on the road? Well, that's a big question. We have actually done a video on YouTube about dealing with health issues on the road. A few years ago, Christy had an ear infection. It was a really bad infection when we were traveling in Quartzsite, Arizona. And we had to make several doctor's visits. So that gets into health insurance, and it can be a problem. One time I actually broke my foot while we were traveling with our Airstream, and that was not a lot of fun. Gilberto says, hello from Kentucky. Hello, Gilberto, and thank you for tuning in. Jim says, got the new Ford 7.3 gas F-250. Sounds nice. Let's see. Harold says, hope all is well. Getting some add-ons on my trailer. Reading your past videos. All right. Quick trip to a bourbon distillery. And if you guys have never done a tour of a bourbon distillery in Kentucky, you're missing out, because we've been, for example, to Maker's Mark, and it was a lot of fun. Gilberto says our new Airstream sticker makes it a 2020. I agree. Some people are asking if we got a new trailer. We did not, but we did get a new Airstream logo for the front and back. And so that really actually did update the look of the trailer. We also got new rock guards, and we got new chrome trim all the way around. So, the next step may be to clean up the aluminum just a bit. But one thing I love about Airstreams, they don't really change that much from year to year. So, I mean, if I parked our 2003 Airstream next to a 2020, if they were about the same length, you might have a hard time telling the two apart from the outside. Now, on the inside, I'm sure they've made some progress over the years. They've got some pretty slick interiors at Airstream. I think the new Airstreams are beautiful. I'm just pretty happy with our Airstream. Danny Joe Etheridge says hello from Sweetwater, Alabama. Hello, Danny. Thank you for tuning in. Connie says a new truck named to see more or more to see. We may be in the market for a new truck, I have to admit. We've been riding the same old truck for 13 years now. Seymour may enjoy a retirement soon. We did put down a pre-order on a Tesla Cybertruck, but we'll see if that happens. I mean, the Cybertruck won't come out for another 18 months at least, and a lot can change between now and then. Every Pennywise asked if we installed a soft start. We do have a soft start on our air conditioner, but that was not necessary for the solar power, I don't think. Anything that demands less than 3,000 watts, our solar package can handle. Kimberly says hello from Northern Nevada. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it very much. Jan says she looks forward to seeing how the solar setup works out for us. And she's upgraded her tires. We upgraded our tires to Michelin, and we will look into getting a tire pressure monitoring system just to review in our channel, because we do get a lot of questions about that. We're excited about getting out there in the field and using our solar as well. Carizales Julio Roberto says, hello from Cancun, amigos. Great to see you, buddy. Hello, Carizales. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. My name has been mispronounced for much of my life. My name is Sean, S-E-A-N. So when I was a kid, all of my teachers had trouble pronouncing my name. A lot of them did. Jim says, thanks for the videos and help. Take care. See you on the highway. Sounds great. Hey, Lori in Michigan just had snow a couple of days ago. It's pretty warm and sunny here. I'm happy to report. We're down in the South in Alabama. It's going to be hot here soon, and I'll be envious of your weather in Michigan. Chris says, hello from Gulfport, Mississippi. Love that part of our country. Lots of good people there. All right, guys. This has been another episode of the Shawn Michael Simulation. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. Lori says the 4-month Alaska trip has been canceled. I'm sorry to hear that. Ironically, I think it could be a good time to go to Alaska if those campgrounds and parks are going to be open. That's the big question. I don't blame you for canceling. At the same time, I think those of you who do get out on the road and explore may be exploring at a very good time, because traffic is going to be way down no matter how you slice it. And all these businesses are going to be super happy to see you. Michael says the soft start was great for a 3,000 watt inverter. I agree with that. The soft start will increase the inverter life. I agree. So yeah, the soft start's a good investment. We'll probably do a video on that eventually. Codizales says I pronounced his name correctly. Thank you. Very happy to hear that. Should I be here? Says, dang it, missed it again. Sorry about that, but it is available on replay. The Shawn Michael Simulation. Hans says hello from Holland. Love Amsterdam. Been there a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and always had fun. I really have fond memories of the Anne Frank house there and also the Van Gogh Museum. Lori says can't get through Canada. Interesting point. Didn't really think about that. Guess maybe you could put your rig on a ferry in Washington State, like in the Seattle area, and just, you get on the so-called Alaska Marine Highway that way. But then you don't get to drive the actual Alaska Highway. That sucks out a lot of the fun and adventure. Brad and Terry had their dually bulletproof to bulletproof diesel. Impressed with Jacob and Dell and crew. Sounds great. They are great guys at Bulletproof Diesel. Should I be here? Says, I'll watch the rerun. All right. Michael says, there any way we can get a little earlier notification that the sim is coming up? Yes, I will start putting these notifications out earlier. I've been in sort of experimentation mode with these live streams. I'm testing some new gear, some new software. We want to start doing a lot more live streaming in the very near future on both this channel and also our usual Long Honeymoon channel. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. And I think what's happened in this sort of lockdown, shutdown period of time, all of these services have been ramping up their software, all this traffic. There's so much demand for live streaming that we're going to have a lot of exciting new options. I mean, for example, for one-on-one meet and greets, we've got some new software that we're testing on our YouTube channel where we will be able to do one-on-one meet and greets with you guys, like sort of virtually face-to-face, kind of like a Zoom type meet and greet, but it's something a little bit different. And I think it's going to be really cool. but we have to get all that stuff set up, and we're in the process of doing that right now. Kip says hello from San Antonio. My brother-in-law is named Kip. So Christy's brother's named Kip. Great guy. Hey to Kip and Kip out there. And Michael says he missed the first 7 minutes. Well, no worries. It will be archived. And I've been talking for about 55 minutes here. We did discuss a lot of drone crashing issues and looked at a lot of my drone footage that I've shot over the past few years. All this stuff from Southeast Asia in this shot has been from the Mavic Mini. And, here I am flying the Mavic Mini in a windy environment above salt water. This was in the Gulf of Thailand. So you really got to watch what you're doing in that environment, because one dunk in the water and that's the end of your Mavic Mini. But thankfully, I had no issues in Thailand. Mark and Sharon says hello from Omaha. Love Loloho, and just got our Mavic Mini last week, learning how to use it. Great. You're going to love it. Here's a shot, again, from southern Thailand with the Mavic Mini. This is the corkscrew helix quick shot mode from DJI. I love it because it will automatically pull off a shot that a human being would have a hard time pulling off. Let's see. Chuck says, got rid of his China bombs on his trailer and bought 5 new tires. Probably a wise idea. James says, picking the upper right doesn't look like Christy. That is was a girl that I met in Myanmar, and it was just a random encounter friend. You'll notice that we have on our face this traditional makeup called Tanaka. And what they do in Burma is they smear this sort of makeup made out of tree bark all over their face and use it as a sunscreen. And they're super friendly people there. And again, this is a side channel. I was just using that on my side channel where I discuss photography, because a lot of times on the Long Run Honeymoon channel, I'm really focused more on RV travel and outdoors and that sort of thing. But I thought there's been so much interest in drones in the RV community that I would put some of these drone broadcasts also over on the Long Long Honeymoon Facebook page. Patrick says, hey, from Ottawa, Canada. Hey, Patrick, thank you for tuning in. We have some good friends from that region of Canada, and we want to make it back up to Canada soon, as soon as they'll let us back in. Patrick says, we're learning a lot from you guys, definitely preparing for embarking on the RV life. That is something we hear from a lot of our viewers. There are a lot of people who watch our channel who don't yet have an RV, and that's great. And, I think now you are empowered through YouTube to get in there and watch these videos, and you'll learn so much and avoid so many potential mistakes by viewing what other people have gone through. We try to document everything, especially, frankly, when things go wrong. We will document it, and we will eventually bring it to you and tell you about it on our channel. Sometimes it takes a little time from the bad event to the time that you see it, but eventually you do see everything we experience, and we hope that you can avoid having those kind of experiences yourself and have mostly positive experiences. Berto says he's going full time next year. Awesome. You go full time, you can chase 72 degrees in sunshine, in theory. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm hitting an hour on this live stream. Appreciate you bearing with me as I experiment a little bit with this new software and hardware. It's a lot of fun for me to connect with you guys in this way, and we will be doing more in the near future with more advance notice than 10 minutes, I promise. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you are not watching this live, feel free to post a comment. I will be checking comments beneath the video, and we'd love to hear your comments. You can always share your knowledge with our community, and it makes us all a little bit more knowledgeable. Ray says hello from Lake Oswego, Oregon. Hello, Ray in Oregon. Oregon, the beautiful state. We've got lots of friends out there. We hope to make it back out there this summer to try some of that delicious Oregon beer. You know what I'm talking about. All right, guys. As always, Thank you for tuning in. This has been an exciting episode of the Shawn Michael Simulation. I am Shawn Michael, and I will catch you on our other channel, Long Long Honeymoon, very soon. And I want to acknowledge Tim says he's not going full time. He'll keep his house, and I totally understand that as well, because the 14-day month limit with parks and campgrounds can be an issue if you're going full time. Some people, they kind of want to move around every couple of weeks. Other people want to stay in one place. And if you can have a brick and mortar home base and then travel out from that, arguably you've got the best of both worlds. So do what you enjoy, Tim. Jan says, thank you so much. We've learned so much from you. Thank you, Jan. We've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, we'd like to say. So we've made a lot of mistakes ourselves. We like to share them with you. Paul says, thanks. Thank you, Paul, for tuning in. And Cadizales says, hello to Christy from your friends in Cancun. All right. We would love to get down there to Cancun to visit with you guys. So if we do manage to pull that trip off once the world goes back to normal, I will be putting a message out to you. We'll get together and have an ice cold Corona. Can I say that? With lime. Donna says, hey, from Bracy, Virginia. It says, all right. Take care. And Paul says this is the closest he's been to social contact for 6 weeks. Yeah, maybe that's one reason I'm enjoying this live streaming so much, is because I'm able to hang out with some people, even if we're not in the same state or even the same country in some cases. Kenneth asks, are most RV parks closed? Sadly, most national parks are closed. I would say many campgrounds are closed. I don't know if I would say most in terms of 51%, but a large percentage of campgrounds are closed. So that is the world we're dealing with right now. And that's why a lot of us have been just hunkered down, sheltering in place, and waiting for better times so we can get out and travel, which hopefully will come soon. All right. My treat. Yep. You buy the first round, I'll buy the second round. How about that? All right. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. I'm going to sign off now, really. I've enjoyed this live stream, and I will be doing many more in the near future. Have a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in to the Shawn Michael Simulation. And Bobby says they're closed. Tim says take care. Praying for the best. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, guys. See you soon.